Have you ever felt like you are wandering aimlessly, wondering if God has somehow lost the blueprint for your life? We look around, and it seems like everyone else is effortlessly stepping right into their God-given purpose. We scroll through our social media feeds and see friends, family members, and even total strangers living out the dreams we have been praying for. They are getting the promotions, finding their soulmates, buying their dream homes, launching successful ministries, bringing home healthy babies, and celebrating milestone after beautiful milestone. Meanwhile, we are left standing in the waiting room of life, holding a ticket with a number that never seems to be called. We feel completely and utterly overlooked, as if the universe has simply bypassed us. It is so incredibly easy in those moments of quiet, isolating desperation to start believing that maybe God simply forgot about you. Or worse, the enemy whispers the lie that you somehow messed up so badly, that you missed a crucial turn a few miles back, and that his perfect plan for your life has been permanently derailed. We convince ourselves that we are now stuck with Plan B, a secondary, compromised life that just won't work out the way we had so desperately hoped. But what if your current season of uncertainty isn't a punishment? What if it is not a sign of God's absence, but rather the profound evidence of his deep, transformative presence? What if this confusing, frustrating, seemingly stagnant season is actually the exact place where God is doing his most beautiful, lasting work in your soul? We live in a fast-paced culture that celebrates the harvest, but completely despises the planting. We want the sweet fruit, but we absolutely hate the messy dirt. Yet, if you look at nature, the most critical phase of a seed's life happens entirely underground, in complete darkness, buried under the crushing weight of the soil. To the seed, it must feel like a burial. It must feel like the end. But to the master gardener, it is a purposeful planting. The pressure, the darkness, the isolation, and the painful breaking of the seed's outer shell are all absolute prerequisites for growth. Without the breaking in the dark, there can be no blooming in the light. I know exactly how hard it is to believe that truth when you are the one who feels buried in the dirt. I remember a time when I was completely convinced that I had irrevocably ruined God's plan for my life. A few years ago, I faced a major life transition that felt much less like a strategic spiritual pivot and a whole lot more like a catastrophic, humiliating failure. I had a vision for my future that I thought was absolutely divine. I had poured my entire heart, my life savings, my waking thoughts, my endless energy, and, most dangerously of all, my personal identity into a path that I was absolutely certain God had called me to walk down. I had done everything right. I had prayed fervently over this dream. I had fasted. I had sought wise counsel from mentors I trusted. All the lights seemed green, and the stars seemed perfectly aligned. I was driving forward at full speed, filled with the kind of confidence that only comes from believing you are exactly where the Creator of the universe wants you to be. Then, the door slammed shut. It wasn't a gentle closing. It wasn't a slow, polite creak as the hinges turned, giving me time to adjust and gracefully back away. It was a violent, jarring, unexpected slam right in my face. In the span of a single afternoon, the opportunity completely dissolved, the relationships tied to it fractured, and the massive financial and emotional investment I had made seemingly vanished into thin air. I was left with a severe case of spiritual whiplash, standing breathless in the rubble of my own ambition. I spent weeks sitting on the floor of my living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes and completely shattered expectations. I remember the physical ache in my chest, a hollow, heavy grief that refused to lift. I remember crying out to God in the middle of the night, my voice hoarse, asking him why he brought me this far just to abandon me in the dark. Why would you give me this desire? Why would you align the pieces, provide the resources, and let me build this dream if you were just going to knock the entire board over? I felt like I was holding the scattered pieces of a massive, intricate jigsaw puzzle that just didn't fit together anymore. I kept trying to jam the pieces into place, trying to force the picture to make sense so I wouldn't have to face the reality of my failure. But the edges were frayed, the colors were clashing, and the image was completely distorted. I was holding a piece of the sky and a piece of the ocean, completely disoriented, no longer knowing which way was up. I genuinely thought I had taken a wrong turn somewhere. I spent hours agonizing over every single decision I had made over the previous 5 years, trying to pinpoint the exact moment I stepped out of God's will and missed out on the beautiful future I was supposed to have. But looking back now, with the incredible gift of hindsight and the profound clarity that only time and healing can provide, I can see so clearly that the closed door wasn't a rejection at all. It was a loving, merciful rescue. God was actually protecting me from a path that would have ultimately drained the life right out of me. Think about a loving parent with a toddler. If a toddler reaches up to touch the glowing red coils of a hot stove, the parent will quickly and forcefully swat the child's hand away or snatch them up. The toddler will inevitably cry. They will throw a tantrum. They are devastated because they were denied something that looked so beautiful, bright, and appealing to them. But the parent isn't being cruel. The parent is protecting the child from severe burns. The parent can see the danger that the child's limited perspective cannot comprehend. God does the exact same thing with us. If He had given me what I wanted, exactly when I wanted it, I would have been absolutely crushed under the weight of it. I did not possess the emotional maturity, the spiritual depth, or the foundational character required to sustain the very blessing I was begging Him for. The environment I was so desperate to be a part of was actually toxic to my soul, but my ambition and my desire for success had completely blinded me to the glaring red flags. God loved me too much to let me settle for a lesser, compromised version of His will. He loved me too much to let my own limited vision dictate my eternal destiny. Sometimes, God has to break our hearts to save our souls. When we look at Scripture, we see this beautiful, frustrating, redemptive pattern repeated over and over again. Think about the story of Joseph. As a young man, he was given a profound dream by God, a literal prophetic blueprint of his future where he would be in a position of great leadership, influence, and authority. But the path to the palace wasn't a straight line. It led straight down into a dark pit. He was violently betrayed by his own brothers, sold into Egyptian slavery, falsely accused of a horrific crime by Potiphar's wife, and thrown into a damp, miserable dungeon where he was entirely forgotten by the very people he had helped. For 13 long, agonizing years, Joseph's life looked absolutely nothing like the dream God had given him. I can only imagine the desperate nights he spent staring at the cold stone ceiling of that prison, wondering if he had misunderstood God. Wondering if his youthful pride had ruined the plan. Wondering if the God of his fathers had simply abandoned him to die in the dark. But God hadn't forgotten Joseph. Not for a single second. The pit and the prison were not punishments. They were preparation. They were the exact, necessary classrooms where Joseph learned the deep humility, the incredible administrative skills, and the radical, unshakable dependence on God that he would eventually need to save the entire known world from a devastating famine. The delay was not a denial. The detour was the actual path. God was actively using the very things meant to destroy Joseph to uniquely develop him for his ultimate calling. Maybe you find yourself in your own version of the pit right now. Maybe you are staring blankly at a closed door, nursing a broken heart, or sitting quietly among the smoking rubble of a dream that just collapsed. You feel overlooked, forgotten, and entirely off track. I want to gently but firmly encourage you today. Do not confuse a change in your circumstances with a change in God's character. He is still good. He is still sovereign. He is still faithful. And He is still actively writing your story. We often view our lives like a tapestry, but we are looking at it from the underside. All we see are tangled threads, messy knots, frayed edges, and dark, confusing colors that don't seem to make any sense. But God is looking at the tapestry from the top. He sees the beautiful, intricate, breathtaking masterpiece that He is carefully weaving together with every joy, every sorrow, every open door, and every painful rejection. When the puzzle pieces of your life don't make sense, it is not because the picture is ruined. it is because God is building a much larger, much more magnificent mosaic than you ever could have imagined on your own. You are hyper-focused on a single dark pixel, but God is painting a masterpiece. The disappointment you are feeling right now is completely valid, and it is okay to grieve the loss of what you thought your life would look like. Take time to mourn the expectations that didn't materialize. But do not unpack your bags and build a house in the valley of disappointment. We have to learn to trust the steady hands of the Maker, even when we cannot trace the mysterious movements of His plan. True spiritual surrender is not about giving up in defeat. It is about willingly handing over the pen to the author of life. It is looking up to heaven with open, empty hands and saying, "Lord, I really wanted this door to open. I wanted this dream to work out. But I want your perfect will for my life far more than I want my own way." So if you are feeling completely lost and aimless today, take a deep, centering breath. You are not wandering. You are being intentionally led. The Good Shepherd knows exactly where you are in the wilderness. He knows the deepest desires of your heart. He sees every single tear you have cried in secret, and He is actively, relentlessly working all things together for your ultimate good and His ultimate glory. Let go of the rigid timeline you created for yourself. Release the tight, anxious grip you have on your own expectations. Allow God the space to be God. The closed door you are weeping over today will very likely be the exact thing you thank Him for tomorrow. Your story is far from over. The page is turning, the ink is still wet, and the best, most beautiful, most purpose-filled chapters of your life are yet to be written. Keep walking, keep trusting, and watch what He will do in the waiting.